James looked back at Mary, who he'd formed a close relationship with. And as he boarded the ship for the 3-week crossing back to Malaysia, he knew that he'd fallen in love. He knew it in every bone in his body. This would lead to Mary later joining James in Malaysia. James had been studying law in London. He was the son of Lo Hung Loon, who was a teacher in Malaysia, who'd migrated from China at 14 years old on a ship to Malaysia to look for work. Mary was persuaded to join James in Malaysia through letters, and they married. They enjoyed the hustle and bustle of what is now known as Kuala Lumpur. They enjoyed the pasar malams, the night markets, with all the haggling over silks and spices, the lush plants growing inch by inch every minute. And they enjoyed being together, walking along the streets and seeing the mosques, the temples and the churches side by side. But Mary longed for her family back in England, and so, without James, she made the 3-week crossing back to England. On board ship, she fell violently ill. She had terrible stomach pains. She had high temperature, and arriving back into England, she found herself in hospital, wired up to monitors. She thought that it was serendipity, that it was a Chinese doctor that delivered her baby, who she named Panni Yoke. I was born with a head full of black spiky hair, and in London, my mother held me close to her chest as she carried me through the streets where Keep Britain White posters were being plastered all over the place. But soon she decided that we must move to the Midlands, to her hometown. In Burton-on-Trent, there was nothing around me Chinese. There was nobody non-white at school. Apart from at junior school, there was one girl, a Jamaican girl. I can't remember her name, but I do remember the other children shouting at me, "We don't want no Malay kids here." I wasn't even Malay. The only Chinese thing that there was a Chinese room that my mother had created. People didn't have lots of things then like they do now, but she'd been to an auction, she'd brought a Chinese rug, some silk paintings on the walls, and we had this Chinese picnic basket that my grandfather, Lo Hung Loon, had sent to me from Malaysia. When I went to secondary school, things weren't much different. There was just one Indian girl, but everybody laughed at her for eating curry. I daren't tell them about the Chinese dishes that my mother cooked at home that she'd learnt in Malaysia. What was the point? At school in home economics, it was just all meat and potato pie and jam roly-poly pudding. When I went to university, things did begin to change. There were students from different parts of the world, not lots, but just a few. But when I got speaking to them, they thought that you should have both parents from the same race. I decided to go to Asian cultural evenings, but somehow China and Malaysia didn't seem to be in Asia anymore. It was when I'd left university and I got my first job, it coincided with me moving to Pittsmore, and I was so warmed to see the people from all around the world living around me. There were still rare sightings of anybody Chinese. Many years later, I got a job with the local Green City Action to engage the multicultural community in environmental education. It was spring. the time of Chinese New Year. So I decided to organise a Chinese lion dance in Abbeyfield Park. Hundreds of people came, and as the lion was rising in the air and diving to the ground, and the cymbals were crashing and the drum was beating, I had a quake through me as I thought of my Chinese family all the way over in Malaysia. And here I was standing in my home place in Pittsmore, in my park, celebrating my culture. And then I looked around me and thought of all the people all around the park from lots of different parts of the world. And that's when the Abbeyfield Park Multicultural Festival was born. I'd heard that if you knocked on the door of the Sikh temple, you would always be let in. So I knocked on the door. A man in a white turban and a big black beard answered the door, and I said, "Hello, I'm Panni from Green City Action, and I'd like to set up a multicultural festival. Would you like to get involved?" And they let me in. There was loads of Sikh people around me, talking excitedly about what they could do in the festival. It was the same when I went to the Hindu temple. Then Churches Together wanted to get involved, and many, many organisations from around the Pittsmore area. There wasn't long to organise the festival, just a few months, but nobody was more surprised than me when thousands of people turned up in Abbeyfield Park. There were Zimbabwean dancers that lit the stage alight. Irish dancers in brightly jewelled costumes ran across the grass. There was black women drummers. Kurdish dancers were getting everybody holding hands and dancing in a circle. There was hip-hop, there was reggae, there was English tea and cakes, there was pakora, there was bhangra, there was salsa, and so much more. And as I was pushing through the crowds, a little girl stopped me, and she looked up at me, and she said, "You came to speak at our school. My mum's Jamaican, and my dad's English." I looked at her, and I said, "That's wonderful." And we smiled. Like that little girl, I'm a child born out of difference. And like many of you here today, I celebrate difference. But I not only celebrate difference, I implement difference. I see this is born out of the fact that I'm of dual heritage, and it's given me a unique perspective to see things from multiple perspectives. And this happens every time I put pen to paper, paintbrush to canvas. I see things in this way. And whether you're an artist, a scientist, a business person, a public servant, I invite you to not only celebrate difference, but to implement difference. Because together we can make a more vibrant, exciting, cohesive, and tolerant world. Not only celebrate difference, but implement difference.